I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist. In this video, we are going to dive into how to do a reset and a refresh of your literacy centers. Now, this is especially helpful if you're coming back from a long break or any time of year when you just feel like things have gone off the rails with literacy centers or whatever independent work your kids are doing while you meet with small groups, right? Whatever system you have set up. If things are not quite going as you would like them to, this video is perfect for you because we're going to talk about some tips for what to do and how to get things back on track. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love for you to do that before we dive in, and then also hit the little bell so that you don't miss out on any of the new videos that I post. First of all, I want to put it out there that getting kids, especially young ones, to work independently during literacy centers is hard. I used to feel like when I was earlier on in my teaching career, like, what am I doing wrong? Why is this so challenging? The fact of the matter is to get kids to be working on task on their own without adult supervision is just plain difficult. Now, if you have volunteers, if you have an aide, definitely use them during that time, right? Because that is a good use of adult help so that the other kids can stay on task. Maybe if they have issues with their technology, an adult can help. So definitely use all the resources that you possibly can. But many times I know that your kids might need to work on their own while you pull small groups. And so how do we reset if things aren't going as they should? First things first, if things are off track, we need to rewind to the same way that we taught centers at the beginning of the school year. Now, you don't have to necessarily take as long or teach them even the same procedures you taught at the beginning of the school year. It's fine if you want to make some tweaks and changes because you've noticed that something isn't working very well. So be reflective as you're thinking about that reset. But you know, it's tempting to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta get to my small groups, I gotta do all this. But at the same time, if you're constantly being interrupted or the kids who are not working with you are just kind of wasting time, then there's no point in just barreling on with small group, right? We need to take a couple steps back and, like you did at the beginning of the school year, think through your entire literacy center or independent work block, right? How do kids know where to go? Where do they get materials? Where do they put materials away? How do they know when to clean up? One thing that I've done, like when I'm actually doing rotations where kids are rotating at the same time, is I will have some kind of bell or timer that goes off that means it's time to clean up. Then kids clean up, and what they do is they put a finger on their lips when they're ready and they point to where they're going next. I did not make this up. I learned this from a teacher a long time ago. So they're pointing to where they're going next. And then there's another signal that tells them, okay, you know, I've seen that you've cleaned up. I usually control when that signal goes off. Like the first one might be a timer to keep us on track, but then I will kind of watch and see and make sure everybody's like good to go and pointing, and then I'll give a signal and then they can rotate. So think through things like that, right? Your classroom might not work exactly like that for independent work. I've done it a million different ways in different years, to be honest, but just think through like, okay, how are they knowing what activity to do next? Also think through your activities. Am I choosing things that are too hard or too easy? Do I need to differentiate a little bit more? All things to think about. But as we're doing this reset, we are breaking all of this down. We are modeling. Have a child demonstrate the right way, the wrong way, and then the right way again. You can have 3 different volunteers do this, right? Because they've learned that at the beginning of the year. And maybe you need to be the first one to model to show them what is expected, whether it's, you know, putting materials away or walking instead of running to your next center, whatever it is. Just think on a micro level, like what are all the things that the kids need to do, and make sure that you or a student are remodeling how to do it correctly, right? And again, this is an opportunity to make some tweaks if things weren't quite going as you wanted them to in the earlier part of the school year. As you're doing this, it can be really helpful to have some visuals, and if you can leave those visuals up while the kids are working independently, even better. I have this set that I'm linking in the caption. It is a set of posters. It's not just literacy centers. It's like everything throughout the school day as far as procedures, routines. You can also edit. There's like an editable version where you can kind of make and customize your own. But this comes as posters or Google Slides. And it's a great way to just give kids a visual reminder of, okay, first I do this, then I do that, and what the routines are. And also then if things are off track, you can just point to something and be like, hey, like this is what you're supposed to be doing. So it is really nice to have those, visuals up there. So as you are reteaching things, you don't want to just review, okay, here's everything for centers now. Okay, go and do it. We want to scaffold, just like we would, scaffold and support students with an academic skill. We want to scaffold them back into doing centers or independent work correctly. So maybe for day one, you just plan for kids to do one activity. And before that, you focus on how to find the materials, how to get started right away, and how to clean up appropriately. And that's all you focus on. Because if you think about it, just going to centers is actually a lot of different steps and a lot of things for them to think about. So the more you can break it down, the better. And have the activity that you're doing be relatively easy so that the focus can be on them doing things correctly, following your procedures, rather than, oh my gosh, I have to remember all these procedures and I have to do this really hard task. That's going to create overwhelm in your students, right? So break it down, focus on just one thing at a time. So maybe that's what you do the first day. And then the second day, perhaps you have a classroom setup where kids rotate. So you bring back the rotations. Maybe you're just doing 2 rotations, even if you normally do 3. So this day, okay, what did we talk about yesterday? Okay, now we're gonna focus on how we transition between our centers or whatever you're focusing on. So it's not all happening in one day. You're kind of stair-stepping them back into what you want them to be doing. As you think about all the different procedures and routines that are involved in centers or independent work, I have a question for you. What do your kids struggle with the most when it comes to working independently like in centers? Just let me know in the comments, and maybe in a future video, I'll be able to focus on that, specifically on how to problem solve in that area. Tip number 2 is to reset your expectations, not just for procedures and routines, but also for how kids interact with each other. This could be maybe each group that works together has a leader. How do you ask the leader for help, right? How do we listen to each other? How do we take turns? How do we decide who goes first when we're playing a game? What if somebody is bothering you? What do you do then? You might want to make a class anchor chart of like, if things aren't, going well and you're working with a group, here are the steps that you take. Because in addition to, just knowing physically what to do and when to be quiet and where to go and all of that, kids need to know how to work together. And maybe your independent work is literally independent work and kids are working on their own. That's fine. I do like to have at least some group activities like a partner game. Usually having kids work with a partner rather than like a bigger group of 4 or 5, it reduces the noise level a bit and it just kind of makes it easier for them to work together. Just a extra tip, bonus tip there. But, many times, even if they're working independently, there might be things that come up, right? Like maybe they're chit-chatting or maybe they're arguing about something or someone again is poking them, whatever it is, right? So we need to know how to interact appropriately with our peers. That is just as important as the where to find materials and all that other stuff in centers. When you're working on those social skills, it can be really helpful and even fun to do some role playing. So maybe you get to be the problem child and you have a student come up and demonstrate, like you're like bothering that student, like what should they do? So role plays can be really fun. It's really just a modeling and demonstration, just like you would with like how to rotate between centers. Tip number 3 is make sure your environment is set up for getting the students to be successful. Now, maybe toward the, in the first part of the school year, you notice like kids were tripping over things or kids didn't have like something to look at, to go to when they weren't sure what to do next, or things weren't getting put away appropriately. So now this is an opportunity for you to relook at all of that and make some decisions. Maybe you need to move, like maybe you had a writing center in this area, but the kids were like not paying attention because right next to it, there was a partner game center and that always got a little bit rowdier, right? Or maybe the reading center was right next to that partner game center. And again, the kids who were reading couldn't focus because there was a lot going on. So maybe you need to physically separate or just rearrange where your centers are. That's one thing. Another thing, of course, using visuals, giving something kids can look at. And along those lines, maybe if materials weren't being cleaned up correctly, maybe you want to take a photo and print it out of what it looks like to have materials cleaned up correctly. And maybe that photo just lives on the bin. Maybe you just stick it on there so the kids know what cleaned up looks like. If you want to, you could even involve the kids in creating that, right? Like as you're practicing the procedures and routines, say, oh my gosh, you did such a great job cleaning this up. I'm gonna take a photo and then I'll put it in this center so you always know what good cleaning up looks like. So you can involve them in it too. You can even take photos of the kids as long as that's permissible at your school by their parents, of like them doing things the right way in centers, right? Sitting next to each other, you know, elbow to elbow if they're partner reading, and then put that somewhere so that they remember exactly what they're supposed to do. Kids love seeing photos of themselves, so it's really a win-win there. Another thing is you're thinking about the environment of the classroom and like how things are, you know, rolling as you're doing literacy centers or independent work, is the kids' papers. So maybe you're having them turn things in, but what if they're not finished? Are you having kids who are kind of panicking about that? Well, a great solution is to have a centers folder that even if they're sitting in one spot or moving around the room, it just goes with them. And so unfinished work can go in one side, maybe put stickers on it to help differentiate. Unfinished work goes in one side, and so then the next day they can get it out and start working on it again. So that's another consideration that can be helpful in planning or replanning the environment for centers. My last tip is to rethink the things that you're asking kids to do. And this comes back to the idea of what are the kids actually doing in centers. So there's different things that could get in the way of kids being successful, right? Something could be way too easy. Now it's okay to have them practice things that are easy. What they're doing in centers should be familiar. It should not be that, okay, I'm going to teach this 10-minute lesson and now you have to do all of this independently, because there's no bridge there, right? There's no supported practice. There's no guided practice. It's just I'm modeling and teaching and now you're doing it all on your own. That can really set kids up to not be successful because they're just not ready to do something without support. So think about that as you're kind of planning what's going in centers. Teach skill A on Monday. That skill might not be in centers until the end of the week or the following week. So it needs to kind of be staggered like that, right? Another thing to think about is how many different activities are you expecting your kids to learn and be able to do in centers? So this was something that I struggled with a lot. And so what I ultimately ended up doing is making centers that could be played multiple times, but I mean, yes, multiple times, but they had different versions. So like this spin and cover game, I'm going to include the link for these in the caption as well. But this spin and cover game, like here for kindergarten, they are spinning, and like if they spin the W is a partner game, they get to cover the wagon or something else that begins with W, like watermelon. But then I have a copy of this game for no letters, just phonemic awareness. I have copies of it for CVC words, and they're all in those files that I'm going to link there. But what that does is I teach kids this template. I teach kids how to play spin and cover, and then they can play it throughout the year to practice different skills. And on the different versions, it's not always the cat spinner. It'll be a different spinner, right? So it looks fresh, it looks new, maybe it's a different skill, maybe it's the same skill. So kids feel like they're getting something new, so they're less likely to get bored. They're getting to practice different skills, but they already know how to do the activity. Same thing with this Don't Strike Out game for 2nd grade. So this is a phonics-based game. This particular one is for double final consonants, but I have it for like multisyllabic words. Again, it's the same template, but different themes. Like they're not always frog themed. There's different themes on them. So it feels new, but they've already learned how to do this activity and they can practice it many times with different skills across the year. It's also nice because maybe you have some kids that are a little bit like less advanced in their knowledge and some kids who are more advanced. Well, they can play different versions of this same game and it seems like, oh, I'm pretty much playing the same thing, right? But they're working on skills that are appropriate for them. So all of that is to say is we want to be really aware of what we're asking kids to do independently, because that can either set them up to be successful or it can stress them out. It can be too much. We can throw too much at them and then they don't know what they're supposed to do. So these year-long center activities, again, I'm going to link in the caption of this video. It's a huge sanity saver because you just have less to teach, and yet they can do it so many different times with so many different skills. And by the way, I have those for kinder, 1st, and 2nd grade, a couple of different activities for each grade level. They are, again, just a huge time saver. Another thing, if you want to save a ton of time when you're prepping for literacy centers, is to join my literacy clubs. They have been around since 2019, and since then we've been giving thousands of teachers centers and small group activities every single month. And the reason why we focus on that is because for me, that was the biggest time before I became a reading specialist and when I was in the classroom, that was the biggest time block where it was just so much to plan for, and yet it goes so quickly and you need so many resources. So we take care of that for you. Depending on your grade level, we have kindergarten and first and second grade clubs. Depending on your grade level, you're gonna get between 16 and 19 centers per month that are brand new, but we do also follow that kind of templatized setup where maybe in January you get, some certain game, and then you're gonna see that game again in maybe March, right? Because we don't wanna have just too much new be going on that we're throwing at our kids. So you'll see those kind of loop through the year. It'll be something fresh, something new. All new centers every single month. We don't do repeats even, years later, but there's still that consistency so that you and your students can be set up for success. Plus you get all the small group decodables, lesson plans. There's just so much in the club. Now we only open the doors to the club every January and July. So we'll include the links for those in the caption, but you can also get on the wait list or get a free trial if the clubs don't happen to be open right now. But again, that is the biggest way to save time during your literacy centers or small group block, because, that's just a ton to plan for. And if you can create more consistency for yourself, it saves you time and it also helps the kids be more successful. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.